Good evening, everyone. This is Veer Maheshwar Charitable Trust Latur MS India organizing daily international webinar series. In this series, speakers are invited from India and abroad. This series is running from last 5 years, and mostly women resource persons are invited under the mission of Women Empowerment Series. We have completed more than 1,400 events or sessions of this session, out of which 1,200 are women resource persons. So this is a women empowerment series. And today in this series, we have invited Dr. Vinodhini ma'am, Dr. Vinodhini Chinnaswamy ma'am, who is associate professor of English at Presidency University, Bangalore, Karnataka. Being a teacher of language, English language, she has selected the topic, the Emerald Page, a journey through Irish literature. This topic and the Irish culture, Irish literature is new for us. So we will eager to listen from her in next session. I welcome you, ma'am, from my organization and from all the participants, those who are joined here. And I request you, you can start your speech on this a journey through Irish literature. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction, sir. Shall I share the screen now? Sir, am I audible? So how do I make it full screen? Sir, how do I make it full screen?
Yes, ma'am. We are seeing the screen. You can start. Okay.
Okay.
The first page is on in front of us. Okay.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. So welcome to the Emerald Page, a journey through Irish literature. Today we will explore how a small island produced one of the world's richest literary traditions. The Irish literature is not merely a collection of text. It is a living record of myth, history, identity, conflict, memory, and cultural resilience. From ancient Celtic legends and medieval manuscripts to Nobel-winning poets and contemporary novelists, Irish writers have continuously transformed local experiences into universal stories. Over the next 50 minutes, we will trace this remarkable journey across centuries and discover how literature became Ireland's most enduring cultural voice. So, before we begin our literary journey, we need to understand the land that produced these writers. Ireland is an island situated to the west of Great Britain. Today, the island is politically divided into two parts. The larger portion is the Republic of Ireland, an independent nation with Dublin as its capital. The northeastern region is the Northern Ireland, which remains part of the United Kingdom with Belfast as its capital. This division is not merely geographical. It has profoundly shaped Irish identity, politics, religion, and literature. Many Irish writers have grappled with questions such as, what does it mean to be Irish? Is identity determined by the language, religion, birthplace, or political allegiance? The Irish landscape itself plays an important role in literature. The rugged Atlantic coast, mist covered mountains, peat bogs, green fields, and ancient ruins repeatedly appear in poems and stories. Unlike many literary traditions that focuses on urban, Irish literature often begins with plays. The landscape is not simply a backdrop, it becomes a character in its own right. When reading Irish literature, we often encounter themes of belonging, displacement, exile, memory, and home. These themes arise directly from Ireland's unique history. As we proceed through today's webinar, notice how almost every writer we discuss engages with the question of identity, place, and history. So, a literary tradition like no other, Ireland's literary heritage is remarkable for several reasons. Despite being a relatively small island, Ireland has produced extraordinary number of internationally celebrated writers. This raises an interesting question: why Ireland has generated such a rich literary tradition? One explanation lies in the importance of storytelling within Irish culture. Long before books became common, stories were preserved through oral traditions. Professional storytellers, poets, and bards traveled from place to place, entertaining communities and preserving cultural memory. Stories served many purposes. They preserved history, transmitted moral values, explained natural phenomena, and strengthened communal identity. Another reason which I could state is Ireland has a very complicated history. It was a British colony. It suffered great famine. There were a lot of migrations happening over 200 years, and it had religious conflict and political struggle, and all these created experiences that demanded expression. So they had to speak through the literary works. Literature became a means through which people processed trauma, remembered the past, and imagined a different future. Irish writers often transform local experiences into universal stories. Readers across the world connect with their themes of love, loss, belonging, exile, and resilience. The result is literary tradition that is both deeply Irish and profoundly global. So the Irish literary revival. So I have a very detailed information about that. So we have to imagine Ireland in the 19th century. The Irish language was declining as the traditional folklore seemed threatened by modernization. Many intellectuals feared that Ireland was losing its cultural identity. In response, writers, scholars, and artists launched what became known as Irish literary revival. This movement was not simply about producing literature, it was about cultural recovery. Writers sought to reclaim Irish myths, legends, folklore, and traditions that have been marginalized for centuries. One of the central figures was William Butler Yeats. Yeats believed that Ireland possessed a unique spiritual and imaginative heritage. He collected folk tales, explored Celtic mythology, and transformed this material into poetry. Then we have Lady Gregory, played an equally important role. She gathered stories from rural communities and helped establish the Abbey Theatre. Abbey Theatre became a platform where Irish stories could be performed for Irish audiences. It encouraged playwrights to represent Irish life, language, and experiences on stage. The literary revival helped create a sense of cultural confidence that contributed to Ireland's eventual political independence. In many ways, this movement demonstrated that literature can become a form of nation building. next, we have the giants of modernism. A few centuries ago, the literary traditions were created by the Irish writers through oral tradition. So we have few countries have produced writers as revolutionary as James Joyce and Samuel Beckett. James Joyce transformed the model novel. His works focus on ordinary people living ordinary lives, yet through innovative techniques, he revealed extraordinary complexity of human consciousness. His masterpiece Ulysses follows Leopold Bloom through a single day in Dublin. On the surface, very little happens, yet within that day, Joyce captures countless thoughts, memories, and associations and emotions. Joyce showed that literature could explore the inner workings of the mind in unprecedented ways. Samuel Beckett took literary experimentation even further. Living through horrors of two world wars, Beckett questions traditional assumptions about meaning, certainty, and progress. His famous play, Waiting for Godot, features two men waiting endlessly for someone who never arrives. Their play appears simple, but it raises profound philosophical questions. Why do humans search for meaning? How do we cope with uncertainty? What happens when our expectations are never fulfilled? Together, Joyce and Beckett transformed world literature. So we have four Nobel laureates. One of them, most impressive achievements of Irish literature is four Nobel Prize winners. W.B. Yeats received the Nobel Prize in 1923. His poetry blends mythology, nationalism, mysticism, and personal reflection. George Bernard Shaw won in 1925. His plays challenged social conventions and encouraged audiences to think critically about politics, education, class, morality. Samuel Beckett received Nobel Prize in 1969. His innovative drama transformed modern theatre and influenced writers around the world. And Seamus Heaney became Ireland's fourth Nobel laureate in 1995. His poetry combines historical awareness with intimate observations of everyday life. Together, these writers span almost an entire century of literary achievement. What makes this particularly remarkable is that each writer developed distinct voice. There is no single Irish literary style. Instead, Irish literature thrives on diversity, experimentation, and originality. So I would like to discuss on Seamus Heaney. He is the most celebrated poet of Ireland. He wrote all his works in English, and all his writings speaks about the pains and pangs that have been suffered by the natives of Northern Ireland due to colonization. Seamus Heaney is often called the voice of Ireland because his poetry captures both personal and collective memory. So, born in 1939 into a farming family in County Derry, Heaney grew up surrounded by fields, animals, tools, and rural traditions. These experiences shaped his imagination. So, one of his most celebrated poems, Digging, begins with the poet holding a pen while remembering his father and grandfather working with spade. The poem concludes with famous declaration, I will dig with it. So here I want to make a mention. The poet, he chose to write because he doesn't want to take the gun. Because in Ireland, civil strife was going for over several centuries, and there was no peace, and the locals, the natives were not given any rights to act according to their will. So the IRA, Irish Republican Army, uh, it was fighting against the colonists, and the poet, he said that he will choose pen instead of gun, and with the pen he will dig the history, the past of his family. This metaphor, actually, I will dig with it. Instead of digging the earth, he will dig into memory, language, and history. So, this metaphor perfectly captures his poetic mission. He doesn't want violence, he wants to write about the sufferings of his people, and he wants to preserve certain cultural practices in his writing. He wants to record it in his poetry. If you take any poetry of his, you could see the nativity and the traditional things that were being followed will be seen. And he uses here and there the Irish terms in order to preserve the language. Throughout his career, he explored themes such as family, labor, identity, history, violence, and belonging. His poetry is admired because it combines intellectual depth with vivid sensory detail. Readers can smell the soil, hear the sounds of farming, and feel the textures of rural life. Yet beneath this description lie larger reflections on culture and history. So when you read his poetry, you can enjoy the nativity, the sense of nativity that he has, spread throughout his writing. When you read the poem Digging, you could smell the soggy peat, okay, and you can smell the soil when you read that poem, and you could see the poet's dilemma whether to choose the pen or gun. At the same time, he talks about the family tradition, that is potato digging, and he goes back to the past, as a child, how he observed his grandfather digging the soggy peat and taking out the potatoes. As a child, he was drinking the milk and he was observing it, and all these memories are recorded in the poem Digging. And when you read certain poems, you would understand how the people have suffered under the clutches of the colonists and how they were exploited. And people, Irish people, you would have heard about the Bloody Sunday. For that, the people, they gathered, and it was a very, what do you call it, as a silent protest, but the people were brutally killed by the colonists. So you would have also heard about the Irish Troubles. Irish Troubles, it represent one of the most painful chapters in modern Irish history. The conflict involved complex political and religious and national divisions. So there was a religious struggle there, because between the Catholics and the Protestants there was a big war that was happening for a very long time. So when you go to Northern Ireland, you could see how people, are still living in fear because they have suffered over centuries. Some communities identified as British and wished Northern Ireland to remain a part of United Kingdom. See, the British were Protestants and the Northern Irish people were Catholics, and they had no freedom to follow their religion. And others identified as Irish and sought reunification with Republic of Ireland. Violence escalated during late 1960s and continued for nearly 3 decades. So this, what do you call it, as civil strife was going for more than 30 years, and everywhere bomb shelling was happening, and many innocent people were killed. There were people, when they go, the common people, when they go out, you could see the racist mob coming and attacking them, and they were ruthlessly murdered, and there was nobody to question them. So the bombing, shooting, military operations became a part of everyday life. And this British people, this Irish people, they had to pay tax for their own land, and they cannot cultivate a crop which they want to, cultivate. So they have to only cultivate potatoes. And some families, like Simas Heaney's family and all, they wanted to grow turnips. So what they do in between the what do you call the potato farm, in the potatoes, they used to seed turnips. And it was it was with great anxiety they were doing it, because once the policeman comes and checks, and if he finds that another crop is cultivated, definitely they will be punished. So there is one poem called Bicycle, excuse me. In that, a young boy, when he sees the policeman's bicycle, he is, he gets into anxiety. And, when he sees the bell, he thinks that it is like, what do you call it, as ticking bomb. And he's so scared, and he runs and hides, because if the policeman comes to know that a crop other than potato is cultivated, definitely they will be punished. And another one incident which I want to mention is one that is Bloody Sunday, which happened on 30 January 1972 during Civil Rights March in Derry. So the Irish people, they went for a civil rights march in the place called Derry, and the British paratroopers, what they did, the march was very silent, there was no violence at all, but the British soldiers intervened and they killed 13 people mercilessly. This event shocked the world and it intensified the tension. For writers, the challenge was how to represent violence responsibly. So when you read all these Irish writers' work, they would have very beautifully expressed their emotions, and very powerfully they would have expressed, but they never used their work as a medium of a propaganda. Many poets avoided political propaganda and instead focused on human sufferings, grief, fear, and moral complexity. Their work reminds us that literature can preserve historical memory while encouraging empathy and reflection. So when you just so you could see the picture how Seamus Heaney taking the potatoes out, and in the north, the poem collection speaks about the troubles and violence that has been, a part of their everyday life will be, very well expressed there. And there is another one epic, Beowulf, and it was translated by Seamus Heaney. So when you look into famine and memory, it will be very painful. So the Great Famine, which happened between 1845 to and 1852, there was something called potato blight. It's a disease that affected the potatoes, and it caused a major blow on the economy and on the lives of people, because the potato was their staple food. So every Irish would eat at least 13 potatoes for their everyday meal. So when the potatoes started rotting and people suffered a great hunger, and they had to migrate to different places. So what they did, they took coffin ships. Coffin ships meaning the ships which were not in proper condition, and the big question is whether the ships would reach the destination correctly, because it was not in proper condition. It might sink, it might capsize anywhere. And because of this great famine, the people developed malnutrition. There were a lot of deaths, and there were women begging people for money to bury their children. So the situation was very pathetic, and they were helpless, and they had to, suffer a lot because of this great famine. So it was very big, what you call as a tragedy in the lives of Irish people. And you could see many Irish people migrating to other continents through this coffin ships, and they are completely cut off from their family and their lineage. But still, the Irish, still they are digging to, find their roots. So I told you about Bloody Sunday and the troubles that the people have undergone, and the literature becomes a witness. The writers like Heaney, Michael Longley, they were the voice of all these griefs, injustice, and hope, and they expressed their sufferings, pains, and pangs in their writings. At the same time, through their poetry and through their literary narratives, they preserved the traditions which were lost due to modernization and thrust of foreign language. And the Good Friday Agreement, it was signed on 10th April 1998, the historic peace that brought an end to violence and opened the doors to reconciliation. The peace remains fragile, but the hope endures. That agreement brought in a kind of peace, but the people still live in fear because IRA was not brought down. Still, the violence was happening here and there. So this Bog poetry, I want to make a special mention because this Bog poetry, it speaks about the human sacrifice and how people were brutally killed for their selfishness. So the poem, Toland Men, the Bog body becomes an emblem of sacrifice and violence. So when you dig any place in Ireland, you could find a Toland man. That is the human beings were given as sacrifice to enhance the fertility of the land. So next one is the Grabale man, the preserved dead, tendered unsettling beauty. And then punishment links a bog body to the punishment of women during the troubles. The punishment is like women during the troubles. They had no money, and they had to do prostitution with the British soldiers. So what happened? These IRA people killed them and buried in the bog land. And next one is Strange Fruit. The Strange Fruit is the poem where you could see an innocent person killed and hanged on the tree because he belongs to a different race, and he doesn't speak the language of the colonist. So the person hanged on the tree is referred to as the Strange Fruit. The next comes the Requiem of the Croppies. So if there were some soldiers, this is a poem written by Seamus Heaney, in 1798. So United Irishmen, they rebelled against the people, the British people. They carried barley seeds in their pockets, okay? And when they were killed and they were buried, the barley started sprouting. So the meaning here, what you can understand is that, so the rebellion is not an end. It sprouts again, it will grow again, and it will fight for its rights. So next comes the modernization. So here also the British, they introduced BBC, where the people had to speak the language of the colonists, watch the programs telecasted by them, and it was purely English. And there was a situation that the people cannot speak their own language. If they speak the Irish language in front of a British soldier or a policeman, they will be, they'll be caned and they will be punished. So it was a thrust of a language, of foreign alien language on them, and they were forced to learn that, and they were forced to speak that. So even Seamus Heaney, if he has to encounter a policeman, he cannot say his name as Seamus. He has to say as Joseph, which is the English version of it. And the television, completely ruined the tradition of another Irish people, because the Irish people had the tradition of telling storytelling was there, mumming was there. They move from one place to another, and they used to share the stories, share the information with the people. And many oral folk traditions, including mumming, came to an end by the late 20th century. So the Irish mummers, they used to move from place to place. They used to wear straw suits, masks, disguises, concealed with performer's identity. So you will not know who is performing, but they will tell the stories. Irish folk stories will be, told with actions. The stock characters include Saint Patrick, Oliver Cromwell, and a doctor who revives the dead. So the stories and all will be based on mythology, religion, and their traditional practices. It had a music culture which is blended with rhythmic verse and ritual drama passed on orally and across generations. Mumming celebrates a community heritage and the power of storytelling to connect past and present. Excuse me. So the murals are another important thing that I have to discuss. See, you could go to Ireland, you could see the Irish murals, which speaks about the past Ireland, and in Belfast and Derry are known for large-scale wall murals that speaks about the political history and the community identity, and it says how people have undergone a lot of troubles over 200 years. So you also can find literary figures on the walls painted, and the information about them will be depicted there. So the walls, becomes a matter of remembrance of the past. So you could see all these murals in Falls Road and Shankill Road, and it speaks much about the resistance of the people. So the murals, it honors writers, events, extending literary memory into public space. Folk art and community voice, if you see the murals, expresses folk art and communal storytelling, much like oral tradition. So when you see the murals, you get to know what all has happened in the past of Northern Ireland. So here, the mural will speak about identity, and at the same time, it records its past, and it tries to inform it to the future generation. So the contemporary Irish voices, you could see Sally Rooney, okay? His famous work is Normal People, Conversation with Friends, and then you have Home Tuabin, Brooklyn, The Master, where his famous works. You have Anne Onright, The Gathering, Booker Prize, 2007, and you have Colum McCann, The Great, Let the Great Word Spin, the National Book Award recipient. So when you go to Ireland, you can observe the past history through all these writers' works. Through their works, you can understand how they have suffered and how they have come out of it, and but still people continue to remain in that anxiety because they are unable to come out of the fear and the struggle that they had experienced. Even the young generation still, suffer that pain now as well. So the history becomes a nightmare from which I'm trying to awake, says James Joyce. So I've just given an overview of how the literary tradition came into light and how it has become worldwide acclaimed with their writings. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Uh, it was a real journey of the Irish literature, how the Irish literature is having potential to create, in which situations the peoples were suffering, not from 1 or 2 years, but 200 years. And the Bloody Sunday have vanished their lives, their emotions, their generations, means a cultured generation which is innocent one, having no criminal minds, but they have killed very badly due to the bad rurals. So this gives that a sad feeling about these rich cultured peoples. I know there was a poem of YB Yeats in our 12th science English uh, poem. Uh, the poet was died in very younger age due to of TB. I think WB Yeats. Yeats and Keats both were poems, both sonnet poems were there. And in their sonnet, in last two lines, they always display their sorrow. And you have introduced all these things, and we are feeling very sad that how the peoples are vanishing, the cultured people, those who are having not any their crimes, or they have right to live joyful in their journey. At the same time, George Bernard Shaw was also the writer, and the literature of him is also included in our English literature. Up to 12th, we have read something. And you have introduced to all other writers and the culture of that Irish peoples. And this is a new thing for us, and very bad to listen this that they were killed brutally in various events. Also, they have to pay tax. Also, they have no right to cultivate their crops. Means they have no right to enjoy their life in a natural way. So it's a very cruel thing we have listened today, and you have introduced about the situation. At the same time, they have their poetry, drama, and you have said that the wall paintings, which are displaying their quill's history and generation. Uh, so these things are introduced by you today. Uh, I am very thankful, and I request participants they can also discuss with our speaker and share their uh, knowledge or share their things. Link is available in the chat box. We welcome Dr. Swanand Shukla, sir, please.
Good evening, Dr. Betkar, sir. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening,
Thank
sir.
you very much for the wonderful, journey of, the Irish literature. And really, it is a very interesting thing to explore, such kind of how this has developed. Both are, I think, English and Irish, both are Indo-European languages, but they are very different than each other. And if you see the distance between Ireland and England, is they are very close. The shortest distance is 20 kilometers and maximum is 450 kilometers. So it is not much distance as such, but still you'll find they are maintaining their, the literature, their language, and a very important thing, that is the art of storytelling, what Irish people are, known for, and especially in the folk way they used to, just what we are having in our India also. They also presented their views. And yes, definitely you have talked about, that one of the very important dot, if I'm not wrong. And I think it is a story of two people waiting for someone to come and change their lives. But, they kept waiting and nothing happened. So there is a moral we get from such a kind of stories. So wonderful poems are there, and no doubt, just like William Shakespeare, we are also having such a great Joyce and other, people you mentioned it, they are also wonderful people. And Dr. Betkar also mentioned that we are reading this. But, I'm talking about when we talk about the language and literature, the nationality goes very close to that. And many people, they may try to maintain their language. Uh, I think for 2 centuries, 16 and 17, the English people,
And they are not different from us. Just like us, we also suffered under the British, they also suffered under the British. But their suffering is much more than us.
yeah, 2 centuries they were under their pressure and all those things. What you have mentioned, that they cannot decide for their land what cultivation they should take, and they have to pay tax for their own land also. So that these are the crises what we can see. But still, you'll find, because of the literature, what I find, that this Irish culture is alive. And my question was, we were there for 150 years under the England, similar kind of thing with the Irish. We learned English, we were imposed to learn English, and we started talking English, like our own language. But whether the same influence is there on Irish people or it is little different.
No,
They
sir,
are when,
they were forced to learn because when BBC was introduced there, they were forced to learn that language and they have to speak and they have to write in English. That's the
just
reason
like
James Joyce, Beckett, Bernard Shaw, Seamus Heaney, they wrote their works in English. If they write in Irish, they will be troubled, they will be punished. So they used English and they wrote. Even W.B. Yeats also wrote in English. And if you read their poems, you can find here and there the Irish words. In order to preserve certain native words, they have inserted that. So sometimes when you read that, you may wonder what it is. And when you search for the meaning, you get to know that it is an Irish word. Because they cannot
yeah,
speak their language, they cannot write that language.
we feel that these are English words or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think in India also we want to make some babus and clerks in the India. So that is why they force us to learn English. But I think I really proud of a country like France. They French is something for great for them, and they are not adopting English. Unless and until it is not forced or it is an international platform. In our India also, Kerala and certain Andhra, they are using their language. They are using their language, and they are maintaining that heritage. That what we can say, something very.
They are proud of their tongue. They are very proud of their language and they want to continue their language tradition to go on. But in many places, it is not followed.
So my conclusion is, if we really want to keep our literature alive, it should be written in their same language and the same poems and make the folk songs. So they should be in the same form. If you go to Maharashtra, I mean, my state, you'll find there are some, Bharud and, teachers are there where people are learning also from these folk songs. So they get some moral learning also. So this is how, we should maintain our own literature culture also. That is very important. And really, Irish people, what we are saying, Ireland, when we are saying it is very close to England, I think the Northern Ireland is a part of United Kingdom. And
Yeah.
other is your Republic of Ireland is there. So I think everyone should maintain their language, their literature, and they should nationality. I think that is how we preserve our nation. So that I really enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
sir.
Dr.
Thank you
Gupta,
so
sir.
much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swami Shukla, sir. Today also you have discussed with the speaker and said that British were ruled on India for 150 years. But we have not suffered so as like Irish peoples. I think the theme behind is that we already having our leaders and our literature and all peoples which were like kings and they were having power to fight various kings from various parts of the country. They have given right answer to British peoples and they British people cannot unable to vanish our culture in that days. It's like that Irish peoples. So today our today's speaker have introduced this fact to us and thankful to you, ma'am. Also, in future also she will be here on different topic.
Sure,
Thank you.
sir. Sure, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay,
You
sir.
can leave now.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for your valuable time.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, sir. Thank you.
Participants are requested to fill the feedback link